ask people to shuffle up to the middle? Would that be okay? It's just so we can get everybody in who wants to hear the talk. I know it's quite hot and you might not want to sit next to people, but if you could shuffle up so we can maximize people coming in.
If the acorn ends up in a hospitable environment for growth, it can grow into a tree and start a new forest. In much the same way as the oak trees, growing tumours are usually derived from epithelial cells that do not have the capability to move. In order for this to happen, the cells must undergo a dramatic change in shape to transform themselves into a motile cell. This process is known as the epithelial to mesenchymal transition, or EMT, and once it has occurred, the now motile cell can migrate through the normal tissues and into the bloodstream, transporting it around the body to sites where it can revert back to a stationary cell and initiate a secondary tumour, or metastases. Look at it this way. Different types of seeds have different optimal growing conditions, and so they will each grow best in different soil types. The same goes for different types of cancers, which favour certain secondary sites in the body. In over 60% of metastatic breast cancers, migrating tumour cells initiate secondary tumours in the lungs, liver or bone. At this point, the cancer is incurable and the treatment options are much more limited as surgery is no longer possible. With this in mind, my research revolves around finding a way to stop metastasis. By halting the seed from leaving or poisoning the soil, it could be possible to prevent this cell migration. My name is Henry Pegg and I'm a PhD student in the...
So a bit of audience participation now. If you have a seat free next to you, would you like to put your hands in the air? Thank you. So we can just do a count. I mean, who needs Glastonbury when you're this full, yeah? Whoa. And our toilets are loads better.
Identified an important antibacterial compound.
We'll leave it with us, we'll just have to send it out.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so sorry it's rather warm in here today, so feel free to fan away, and if you can send your fans my way, that'd be quite nice too. We've got no fire alarm scheduled today, so our exits, even though you only came in one door, you can exit from that door or that door, and there's one at the back there as well. So if the alarm goes, that's where we'll be making for. So welcome to Manchester. It's still sunny-ish. It's still not raining anyway, which is lovely. I'm sure normal service will be resumed very soon when the rains come down. So I've come in this morning with my sunglasses, my suntan cream, and an umbrella. That's Manchester for you, okay? I'm Dr. Ruth Grady. I'm an academic member of staff here in the School of Biological Sciences. I'm a senior lecturer in microbiology, and I'm also one of the two admissions officers that we have in the school. I'm wanting to talk to you today then about what are the biological sciences, what do we mean by it, because different universities will use slightly different terminology. So I want to give you a feeling of why you might want to study biology and get you excited about the subject. And if you're excited about the subject, then you'll be slot very easily into our courses here. I'm going to I'm going to talk about what to look for in a course. So I'll focus on our courses here, our flexibility, and also field courses and placements, how you may change your degree slightly to what you think it is. And then importantly, well, it's important to some people, what can you do with a degree in biological sciences? So I'll give you some indication of the careers pathways that people have had. So here's our definition. By biological sciences, we mean any study that contributes to the understanding of life processes. Other places will call it biomedical, biomolecular, biological sciences. All that umbrella term just means, you know, the applied chemistry of life. These are the 15 different degree programs that you can do here in Manchester. So all these different names. Some of them have more appeal than others. Biomedical Sciences is our most popular. You know, we recruit around about 190 students with that degree moniker. Others ones are less popular, shall we say, in first year, but then people move into them on second year and final year. And we're not looking for any particular number of students for these degree programs. Any of these that you're interested in is just one choice on your UCAS form. Okay, so if you're thinking, I don't know whether to do genetics or microbiology, just put one of them down. Okay, it's the same offer, whichever one you want to do. And when we give you an offer, afterwards we'll invite you up to an offer holder day and we'll go through why you might want to do one more than the other. I'm going to give some indication of this, but the best way to look at the differences between the degree programme are twofold. One, look at our admissions website. Drop-down menus will show you which units are core for some degree programmes and options for others. And then which, in second year as well, which ones are core. Because generally people do the same thing in first year. So it's a common course in first year. The other way to find out about the nuances between the degrees is to talk to our student ambassadors and some of the programme directors who are currently in Michael Smith building where we have stands. So after this talk, if you've not been there already, you can go and ask them the differences as to, you know, why biology, why molecular biology, etc. So let's think about why studying bioscience. Well, of course, it's an interesting subject in its own right. You know, we want to understand the world around us. We like often what we see in the world around us in terms of animals. I'm a cat person. When I do my academic lectures, always got to get a picture of a cat in there, especially my cat. He's very old. He's 16. He's not going to be lasting long. And he's very dear to me. And some of you have drawn into biology because you like animals or you like plants. But there are lots of reasons why we want to study biology as a science. You know, there are loads of big questions and challenges that we want to address. So some of you may be brought into biology because you want to understand the world. You know, what's on the bottom of the ocean? What are all those really weird marine creatures that we can see with the big goggly eyes? You know, having a feeling for what's around us. There are so many viruses, so many bacteria that we don't know what they are or what they do. We know we can sequence their genomes and we know they're there. What they're doing, we don't know. Some people think about the world that we live in terms of global climate change. Can we secure our food for the future? What can we do about rising ocean temperatures, etc.? So these are all really good reasons to be pulled into the biosciences. Some people are more interested maybe just about human life and development. For instance, growing new body parts, you know, how we develop. Sperm, egg, fertilize together. After many cell divisions, a baby pops out, and then, you know, head hopefully in the right place, 2 arms, 2 legs. You know, how does that happen? What are the cells signaling to each other to make this happen? And we know that some animals, like salamanders, they have unique characteristics that we humans don't have. For instance, if you have a salamander and you surgically remove one of the limbs, please don't try this at home. If you remove one of the limbs, then within a few days, stem cells will be directed to that wound, and those stem cells will differentiate into limb cells, and a fully formed limb for the salamander will be regrown, and within 2 weeks, the salamander is right as rain. Maybe a bit cross, it's had its leg chopped off, but it's got a limb back. Now, we can't do that. You know, if we lose a limb, we've lost a limb. We can have a prosthetic, but we can't grow them back. So we want to understand those signaling messages. You know, can we differentiate our stem cells into making something that they weren't initially programmed for? We also want to understand things like neurodegenerative diseases, you know, Alzheimer's and etc. So what's going wrong in the brain? So all of these things affect humans. And of course, all other diseases like infectious disease, whether they're bacterial or viral, the inflammation that's caused by either infectious disease or when our body systems have started to go wrong. We know inflammation is at the basis of lots of diseases. Cancer as well. And we want to think about new treatments and new diagnostics. So helping people be healthy, if we're going to live for longer, is a really important end game for lots of people. But very importantly, in Manchester, we want to be prepared for unknown problems. What are the things coming on the horizon that, you know, we're not sure about how we're going to tackle? So we want to educate our students here so that they can be flexible, in modern parlance, you know, flexible mindset, so people can be driven to help answer these big questions. And we know that lots of these questions are a multidisciplinary approach. You know, we might have the bioscience answers, but we'll need to work with engineers and other scientists. We'll need to work with economists, and some of these are political decisions as well. So that idea that we can take, or new graduates can take their place in the world, working alongside other people to answer really deep questions, is a big part of studying biosciences. And a lot of these questions are being addressed here in Manchester. We are a big research university, research-intensive university. We have a lot of academic staff. We have an excellent performance in our recent Research Excellence Assessment, which you can look for details about that on our website. And I really would suggest you take a few hours actually to look at the research that's done in our faculty and in our school. It will take you down a rabbit hole because there's lots of things to look at. I'll just go through some of them, obviously not all of them. Biotechnology is a very important part of our research. You know, we're at the forefront of a new bio-industrial revolution. We were there in Manchester for the Industrial Revolution when we're thinking about cotton and spinning jennies and all that kind of thing that you learn about in history. But we're now at a bio-industrial revolution. You know, we can't rely on fossil fuels. Is the solution in the biosciences? Can we bioengineer yeasts or algae so that they produce lipids, which are fats, and those fats then can be used as fuel? Big piece of research here in Manchester. Our Cancer Research Centre. This is a partnership between the University of Manchester, so our school, our faculty, and the biggest cancer research charity in the UK, which is Cancer Research UK, and the Christie Hospital, which is an NHS Foundation Trust hospital in South Manchester. So we have the clinicians, we have the scientists, we have the expertise and the money, so that people can really get to grips and understand cancer. And of course, this filters through then to our undergraduate program. You know, we have special units based on understanding cancer and cancer research. You know, for instance, we want to look at the normal cell cycle. How do cells grow? How do they know when not to grow? What happens when cells start to grow uncontrollably? And what happens when they start to move around the body? So we have people looking at modeling cell cancer migration. We have people looking at new imaging techniques so they can see cancers in the body. And we have the expertise here that those people can then teach on our undergraduate courses as well. The Manchester Environmental Research Institute, again, is another centre here that has lecturers and researchers from our faculty mixed with geographers and people in environmental research as well. And they're looking at these environmental challenges for the planet. We have a researcher here who's very interested in fish, and particularly about migratory fish when they go and spawn. What is their reproductive success when ocean temperatures are rising? So they can go out and do work in the field, come back with samples, and do the bench science here, looking at cardiac, the heart, and heart responses. So it's that mixture of field work, if that's what you want to do, and then looking at the core biosciences as well. We have all sorts of institutes or groupings here. We have the largest body clock biological timing research community in Europe centred here at the University of Manchester. And I love the tagline for the Centre of Biological Timing. Its tagline is, understanding the rhythms of life. Now, so if you're going there expecting jazz and drumming, you're going to be a bit disappointed. But they do lots and lots of research looking at circadian rhythms. And circadian rhythms is how organisms track the passing of time, and then they adapt their biology appropriately. So this is why hormones get released at certain times of the day. It's why our blood pressure drops at certain times of the day and at other times is raised. And we know body clocks and the timing of the functions of our body are really, really important for health, because when they go wrong, this is when we get systemic or whole body diseases. Things like diabetes, cancer, inflammation, hormone disorders, even asthma. Lots of these are tagged to, we now think our body clock's going wrong. So we have people here who maybe are interested in the genetics. So they're interested in the actual genes that are behind all of these processes. We've got people who are interested in the proteins or the molecular biology and the biochemistry of what's going on. So lots of research in that. As I said before, we've got lots of people interested in trying to regenerate body tissues. So the Manchester Regenerative Medicine Network, or MARMN as it's called, is really interesting to look at. We're trying to think about replacing or regenerating damaged tissue, and whether that's done with cell therapy or gene therapy. So the research is done here. In fact, if you think of a body part or a disease, somebody will be researching it here in our faculty. So whether it's the pancreas, the eyes, the liver, the kidneys, the research is done here. We have the expertise then to teach the fundamentals to our undergraduate students. Now, if you like something a bit different, you're interested in science, but maybe you want to take a bit more global perspective, we have academics from the Centre for Historical Study of Science, Technology and Medicine. And this is a partnership then between medical humanities, science communication and scientists. And this is where we're thinking about the context of science. How have we arrived at this point that this is how we do science? These are the decisions we've made, and this is how funding is put in place. Looking at the ethics, just because we can, should we be doing this? So that kind of science in society and thinking about, how are we going to drive it forward? How's policy going to look in the future is really important. And some people want to come and study biology, core biology units for the first couple of years, and then they're very interested then in about society and expectations of science. So that's a degree program that might appeal if you want to take that bigger look. So other diseases, I've said before about neurodegenerative diseases, Alzheimer's research. We have the UK Brain Bank here that supplies brain tissue for Manchester University and for other universities internationally as well. And of course, we have all our infectious diseases research too. The Lydia Becker Institute has been at the forefront of lots of COVID research, lots of very interesting new papers coming out about COVID, and our fungi group as well. We're very worried about fungi internally inside the body, especially lots of these are now becoming resistant to the very few drugs that we've got. So we don't want to, I don't want to go worry you. We've got people researching here and looking at it, but bacterial, viral, parasitic, all of it's being done here, which is really comforting. So it's good to know there's lots of good research, because then we've got the staff who can teach on our undergraduate programs. So that's what I'm going to move on to talk about now, is the practicalities of coming to study here in Manchester. And as I said before, we've got 15 degree courses. We're looking to take on about 650 undergraduate students, plus some for the foundation year. As I say, we don't have any caps on numbers for individual degree programs. So only a handful of people will come in on that degree program. Some will have hundreds. But all of you are doing the same units. So over 600 of you will be in a lecture theatre for that 9 o'clock November drizzly lecture. This lecture theatre, just for context, I think the capacity here is 550. So think of another 100 people. So nice big lecture theatres. All of the lectures are podcast and recorded. So, you can listen on at home if that's what you wanted to do afterwards. We have a lot of teaching academics to teach these courses. And the units that you do, look on our website, see what they are. Go and talk in the Michael Smith building to the students and see, what were your optional choices, what were the compulsory choices. That will be the big difference as to which degree program you go for. And then at the end of the first year, we get people together and say, are you on the right degree program for you? When you're an A-level student, you felt like you wanted to do genetics, you were in a tutor group with other people who were doing genetics. You've now decided, well, genetics is okay, but having had a unit on developmental biology and cell biology and pharmacology, I've decided actually I quite like pharmacology more. So then you can switch to the pharmacology degree. So it doesn't really matter which one you come in on doing, other than who your tutor is, because your tutor will be from that degree discipline. And you'll meet roughly weekly, every other week, with 9 other students. You'll be going through essay writing, giving presentations, reading papers, etc. And so it's going to have the flavour of the degree programme in that particular tutorial. Whereas if you're doing something like biology that's very general, your tutor could be a plant biologist. Whereas actually you're more interested in newts or something a bit different. So you might really want to go and do a zoology programme if that's the case. And of course, there are some caveats to being able to change. Some of the degree programs to carry on in the second year, you will have to have made sure you've done the relevant first year units as well. For instance, if you want to do biochemistry or molecular biology, as their name suggests, you will have to have some key chemistry units. These are compulsory if you're on these ones shown in yellow on the screen. However, if you're doing biomedical sciences, they're options for you. So we'll guide you in first year to make sure that you do the correct options if you're thinking about possibly changing to something else. But generally speaking, it's quite a smooth transition. And it's a way that you then get the basic background in all of the biosciences so that you can start to specialise later on. Now, one way you may want to change your degree, we've got various different flavours of all of the degree programmes, and that's by doing a 4-year option. And it may be that you are good at languages, so you want to do either with biology, French, German, Spanish, or Italian, in which case you would need to have an A-level in that modern language. We also offer with Mandarin or with Japanese. You don't need to have an A-level in those subjects because they're not available for a lot of people in their colleges, but you do need to have an A-level in another language to show you have language capabilities. And your first 2 years then, you do the bioscience units, the core bioscience units, and then your options will be taken up in the language school. So you will be doing, the language for 2 years. You'll then spend your 3rd year in a university abroad, or sorry, in a research lab abroad in the country that speaks that language. So you'll have a whole year of doing science. We find these placements for you. We have liaisons with different companies and universities. So you can, guarantee to go to that country as long as you pass your units in first and second year. And then you come back and finish your degree here in Manchester. Now, because you have to do these language units, they're not available to people on other degree programs. So you can't change into the language year in second year. You can change off it, but you can't change into it. So if you're thinking of doing a modern language as part of your degree, make sure you opt for that in the first year. The most common way of doing a 4-year degree is with industrial or professional experience. So this is where you go out on a placement in the 3rd year as well. The companies come to us and ask us if we've got any students who'd like to apply for the placements. They could be in a business, they could be in an educational setting, they could be in marketing, they could be in a research lab or a company. And if you're on the placement scheme, you will see them advertised to you, and you decide if you want to apply for them. So you may find some of them are in Germany, and you think, oh yeah, I really want to go to Germany. Some of them are in Manchester, and you think, oh, I don't want to apply for a placement in Manchester. So it's your choice if you put yourself forward for it. You will then be interviewed, and if you get the placement, you'll go there in your 3rd year, do the placement for a year, come back in 4th year, and finish your degree. Now, you may, if you've opt to do the industrial placement year when you arrive here, you do have to get over 60% in your first year and second year units, so with no fails. So you do have to show that you're keeping up with the science. So it may be that you're knocked off the 4-year degree if things don't go quite to plan in first year or second year. And similarly, when we give people the option of swapping degree programs, you may want to swap from the 3-year degree to the 4-year degree as well. So you don't need to come here saying you're going to be doing the industrial placement year, you can make that decision in first year. With entrepreneurship, again, is another option. This is a bit like with the language, in that you have units that are only available for you to do in the business school about enterprise and entrepreneurship, etc. So for some degree programs, there may be options, but they are compulsory for entrepreneurship. So again, you can't opt into entrepreneurship after the first year. And again, you do the same placements that the industrial placement people will do. You can decide if you want to go for them or not. Some people in entrepreneurship, they want to have a year in science lab. They want to do some research. Some people want to do something more marketing or business. So we have some of those placements available as well. Okay. So I think, yeah, so I have a map here. This is where we've sent placements in the last couple of years. They were not always all available. Lots of these Australian ones were actually self-arranged projects, and the one in New Zealand. So you can self-arrange a placement. Obviously, you will need to run it past our placement office to make sure it is legitimate and you're not being exploited. And you know, somebody will go out and check that for health and safety standards are being upheld. But we always send lots of people to, you know, in Europe, as you can see here, or in Manchester area. You don't need to go far if you don't want to. We send people to Sweden, to Thailand. This is the Mayo Clinic, this one here in Florida. Some of the placements pay really well, and the Mayo Clinic is one of the ones that does. They pay over $30,000 in salary whilst you're on placement there, which is nice. Obviously a very competitive placement to get. We send people to Nevada as well, or, you know, all over the place. So it's a really good way to get that experience in the sciences or in another field as well. And it may be that when you're on that placement, you come back and think, yeah, I want to work in this industry. This is where I want to be. We've got some people out at the moment in science, medical writing companies, and whilst they're on that gap year and on their placement year, and they're doing the job and being paid for it, they're also doing part of the graduate training scheme as well. And they'll come back, they'll finish the degree, and then they can go back and work with that company. Some people will come back and think, well, I had a great time. I was in Switzerland and I was doing a lot of skiing, but I'm not really bothered about science. And that's good for your, you know, career development and thinking, I've tried it for a year, it's okay, I don't think it's for me. And you can come back, finish your degree and go do something else. So the last 4-year degree is the integrated masters. And this is where you do the same first 2 years as everybody else. The third year, you do a lot of the final year units and do group work, research skills exercises. This is where you make a contact with one of our researchers in the laboratories in the Michael Smith or alternative buildings. And in fourth year, you then do your whole year project with them. So you're in their lab for the whole year. A lot of science in that year, no exams. It's probably the first year in your life you don't have exams in January. And you have a research report to hand in at the end of that year. And that's a really, really good preparation then if you want to do a PhD. So the industrial placement year or the integrated masters, if you're thinking about going into a PhD, those are two really, really good options for you. Okay, so this is another way that you can maybe decide why you want to do one degree program or another. If you like getting out in the open air and you want to go on a field course, we do field courses in, where do we go? We go to Mallorca, we go to the Italian Alps, Costa Rica, the rainforest there with the lovely frogs. We've had one in Malaysia this year for the first time, which has been lovely. We go to South Africa as well. So these field courses are lovely opportunities for students who are interested in that kind of out in the field work. These are compulsory if you're doing zoology, so you do one in first year and you can do one in second year as well. They're options if you're on biology or life sciences. They're not available to anybody else. So this may be a reason why you go for biology rather than biomedical sciences. Okay, so you're doing pretty much the same units in the first year, but the field courses are open to you. Of course, there is a cost to them, so you do have to pay some money. They are subsidised, and we make clear what the costs are at the beginning of the academic year. Because they're compulsory for zoology, we also have some free field trips as well that are in the local area, which are doing just as good field work, maybe not quite so sunny. But if you're interested in field work, think about these 2 degree programs. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the application process then. So if you're applying for 2024 entry, I think these are the correct dates. So middle of October if you're applying for medicine, veterinary, dental or Oxbridge. And most people will have the deadline of January, end of January 2024. Yeah, 2024. By that point, we'll have probably had about 6,000 applications. When we get the forms in via UCAS, we have a cursory look at the personal statement just to make sure it matches the degree program that you're interested in. So if you've written one that's very much medicine, 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 we will write to you and say, can you give us one for biochemistry, please? Or which case we won't look at your application further. But other than that, we're not desperately bothered about what you put in there. It's good for you to make the effort. It's really good for you to think about why you want to apply somewhere and what you're applying for. So it's so that you're clear in your mind that, yeah, this is something I'd like to do. And I've done this extra reading for it, or I'm doing an EPQ in this subject as well. So tell us your experience, but we're not actually going to look, tick you off on a grid and think, right, have you got work experience? Yes, you have. Have you done this? Yes, you have. It's more a question, does it look aligned to the subject that you're applying for with us? Now, if it's any of the biosciences, it doesn't matter if you're talking about genetics, and actually you put down molecular biology. Anything in the biosciences is fine. But if it reads as though it's for medicine or dentistry or geography, then we will ask you for a more appropriate personal statement. So we check your GCSEs, meet our minimum, which is maths and English, and that's all we're looking for. And we're really looking at your predicted A-level grades or baccalaureate grades or equivalents. And that's what we're going to base our offer on. And this is what our entry requirements are currently. They'll be firmed up in September of this year. So this is what they are currently. It depends what happens in August. So our current entry requirements are 3 A's to 2 A's and a B. And that depends on what predicted grades you've got. So we will match your predicted grades unless you're only doing 1 core science, in which case your offer will be 3 A's. If you are not doing enough sciences, we can offer you for foundation year instead. All offers are subject to contextual offers as outlined on our website, so you can see what grade drop we would put in if that applies. We don't make any drop grades for EPQs. As I said, that's a really, really good thing for you to do. It shows that you've got an interest that you've followed. It shows that you know how to do independent research, and it's a very, very good thing to do, but it will not form part of our formal offer at the University of Manchester. So when we've given these offers out, we get the results actually a few days before the results day. Results day is always Thursday, apart from that year when it wasn't, but it's always Thursday. And we actually get the data on the Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning before. So we've had a chance to look through and go, okay, all these people were offered 2 A's and a B or 3 A's and they got it, they're in. We've still got places left, right? People who've dropped a grade, you're in as well. People who've dropped 2 grades, right, you're in too, until we're full. And then people who've dropped a few more grades, we can offer at that point the foundation year as well. So it may be that you get offered the foundation year, even if you've done all 3 sciences, if your grades are a bit below our minimum. Now, of course, during COVID, grades were slightly different. And so we were only taking people who'd made their offer exactly. So if you've made your offer, you're in, that's our contract. If you've dropped a grade or 2, we want to take you. We're minded to take you, but we can only take you if we have spaces. So that's the difference there. Now, when we've given you an offer, whether you apply in October or you apply all the way through to the end of January, the offer will be the same. You're not more likely to get in if you apply earlier than if you wait until the deadline. It does make our life a little bit easier if you apply earlier, but yeah, you can go until the deadline. We'll give you an offer, and we'll invite you to an offer holders day from March 2024 onwards. So invite you and a guest if you want to bring a guest, and we'll take on a tour around our facilities. You'll go in our labs, have a go at doing a couple of things, and you can talk to student ambassadors, and I'll do a bit more of a detailed talk about what the course involves. So it's a really good chance to ask lots of questions at that point. So you can really drill down as to, should I do zoology, should I do genetics kind of choice. And around about 1,200 put us as first choice, which I think you have to make that decision by May of 2024. And it's around about 700 places, 655, 700 places. And then on results day, that's who we will be taking. Okay. So just a quick, on a typical week, in what we expect in a STEM subject in Manchester. So lectures, big lecture theatres in first year. By second year and final year, the numbers are a bit smaller because we've got more specialised units. That's where you really specialise down in your degree programme. Around about 10 hours a week, we've got something timetabled where you expect to be. Some of these most of these will be in person. Some of them may be pre-recorded. You're asked to listen to something, and then you'll have something later that week in the lecture theatre, question and answer, activity sessions. We are a practical subject, so you'll be in the laboratory just for a few hours in semester 1, building up to more hours in semester 2, and by year 2, you'll have 4 full weeks in the labs doing longer practicals. More geared to your degree programme. In the first semester, they're more general. We have online resources as well as in the lab, having a go at pipetting, etc. So that means at the end of 2 years, if you're going off to work in a company or in a science lab, you have the skills that you need to be able to do that. As I said before, you have a tutorial 1 hour a week or every other week with your tutor in your degree programme, doing presentations, reading papers, etc. So that's quite a nice social group for you. Even if you're in a very big year group and a very big cohort of, say, biomedical scientists, you'll get to know the people in your tutor group very well. And then in the second year, you'll be mixed up and you'll be with different people as well. So we help you through finding people to hang around with, which is really nice. We also expect you to put about 20 hours, so it's around about 20 hours of timetable stuff each week. We expect you to put another 20 hours in yourself, independent learning, going through the lectures, making notes, reading other sources of information. So not just relying on what you've heard in the lecture theatre or what you've listened to on the podcast, going and reading the sources as well. So if you're interested in where students go after graduating, this is a nice pie chart. We can't do a science lecture without a pie chart, and here you go. So I'll take you through the categories. So the purple one here, 35%. So a third of our students go on from their degree and do more study, a postgraduate study in bioscience. So they will either go on and do a one-year master's degree or go on to a PhD. So they're using the bioscience knowledge they've got and carrying it on because they want to be researchers or want to do something at a higher level. About 14% will go into other bioscience careers. So they're using the science that they've got and they're working in a laboratory. So it could be for a pharmaceutical company, it could be NHS laboratories. So they're not necessarily getting any more qualifications at that point. They may do later on, but they're using their science skills that they've got. Some of our students will go on and do postgraduate medicine courses, which is a 4-year course in some universities, or even take on a 5-year medicine course after doing the 3-year degree. If anybody's thinking of this route, it's not the easiest route because there are funding implications for your student loans. So that's something you must look into in your own personal circumstances if you want to do medicine afterwards. Quite a lot of people go on to do teaching, so taking their science knowledge and taking it back to local communities, whether it's as a primary school teacher, high school, or further education, either doing Teach First or PGCE. So very popular career route. But that still leaves other people, this other blue pie chart here. A third of students will think, thank you very much, science. I enjoyed you, but I'm going to go and do something totally different. I'm going to take the skills I've got, not necessarily the bioscience skills, but my ability to write reports, take complex information and make sense of it, numeracy skills, the confidence to speak in front of lots of people, these transferable skills that employers really like. And people will go and work for a company who want graduates who they can train in their particular mode, whatever it is. So these are people who go on, fast-track civil service jobs, management consultancy, go and work for, say, AstraZeneca, and it may not be in bench science, it may be in working in the administration side of it, or it may be in the policy side of it. So people who are glad that they've got a science background, but they're not in a laboratory, they're doing other associated jobs. It's a really good idea to look at our careers service. You can look at careers.manchester.ac.uk. Because we're a big university, lots of students, lots of alumni, so that means we invite our alumni back to give talks on the wacky jobs that they've done after their degree here. And it means the graduate employers come and do the graduate fairs here because they know we have a lot of really good graduates that they want to employ. And the careers service is very, very helpful, help you write a CV in the right kind of style for whatever job you're going for. They'll do mock interviews if you've never had an interview before, and give you all sorts of guidance. They can also help if you're applying for a part-time job whilst you're here as well, which is really useful. We do hear back that University of Manchester students are really sought after by these different companies. So if you're coming here to do a degree in a STEM subject like biology, and you're coming from the University of Manchester, you are going to be highly employable, which is always good to know. So that's all I'm going to say. That's going to be the end of the talk, 45 minutes, that's good. So the next step is please go and chat with the students and the admissions team in the Michael Smith building. We don't have any presence here in the foyer, so all those stands you see in the foyer are for engineering. Go to the Michael Smith building or look at our web pages, and we'll be happy to answer questions if you have anything specific about your applications. So thank you very much.